Every team, every topic, everywhere. This is Believe.
Looking for these better days.
It is Tuesday, August 25th. I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's what you need to know to make today a better day. The Cleveland Browns have made a decision on the starting quarterback. Is it the right one or the necessary one? Plus, the Raiders dodge a bullet with Ashton Genty. We'll have an update on that injury, and we continue our 32 and 32 NFL team previews with the Carolina Panthers. Michael Fiddle joins me on this episode of Better Day, presented by FanDuel. And Fiddle, let's start with the Browns, who make the decision that Deshaun Watson is going to be their starting quarterback week one. Head coach Todd Monken said this is not going to be a week-to-week thing. Deshaun Watson is our starting quarterback. I talked about this on yesterday's pod with Mackenzie Rivers, and I've been vocal about this for a while now. If you asked me last month, what do the Browns have to do with the starting quarterback position, I said it has to be Deshaun Watson, right? He's got the guaranteed contract. You crushed your organization for years to get this guy. You have to get something out of him before you lose him, right? Before you just send them away. Then this past weekend happened, and we heard his post-game press conferences after the preseason game where the fans booed him at the stadium, and he said he took it personally, and they don't like him, and they cheered when he tore his Achilles, and it sounded like a guy that clearly did not want to be a member of the Cleveland Browns. And I said, there's no way that you could name this guy the starting quarterback because the fan base is never going to accept it. And I don't know if the locker room is going to accept it. Now, I don't know about the locker room as much as the head coach, Todd Monken, does. But when you heard that Deshaun Watson yesterday was named the starting quarterback of the Cleveland Browns, what was your reaction?
I was surprised at first, given that Shedeur played well over the weekend, had a press conference and sideline interview where everyone was raving about him and obviously the Watson comments that you mentioned. So I was a bit surprised at first. But then when I took like a second to think about the football of it, I do think it makes the most sense for Watson to start. And, you know, I live in the WNBA realm of sports betting. So like, I'm very used to putting away the politics and personal issues and sideline conversations to just evaluate the game sometimes. So separate to all of the drama that comes with Watson, I think all that stuff is pretty universally agreed upon and like, you know, how we all feel about the situation. But just from the football perspective, like there's a further penalty to cutting him from a cap ramification perspective.
Yep.
And Shador's still a second year player in the league. And so it's totally fine to keep him on the bench and then bring him on later in the year if things don't go right. It's a way bigger difference to start with Shedeur and then try and bring in Watson and bench him from the jump. So I think like we've seen this kind of, I feel like 100 times in football where you go with the veteran to start the year because it's a more seamless transition. If you're splitting hairs between what truly is the right football choice, you go with the veteran. So there's practice stuff, there's locker room stuff that we truly don't know as much as them. Like we've seen blips of preseason stuff. But given the contract, given the ramifications that you can't cut him, that no other team is going to accept him. And so all those things means like he's going to be on the roster. And if he's going to be on the roster, you probably have to start him nonetheless. So I'm actually like, as it's sunk in, I'm actually not surprised at all. And what I would be interested in is like, if this team starts to win, if the public perception changes, because I feel like the public perception pretty much around every negative situation has changed when someone started winning again. And so if they start out like 5-0, is 4-0, is he getting cheered as he runs out, or is it still boos? Because then you have to truly ask, like, what's the price of winning, right? If your team if your fans still hate you despite succeeding from a football perspective, that like, what's really the point of it? Then you might as well just move on because it's clear it'll never happen. But for now, it actually makes sense for me.
Yeah, we're going to find out in week 3 because the Browns start the season with 2 road games at the Jaguars, at the Bucks, and then home week 3 to the Carolina Panthers. We're going to talk about the Panthers today in our 32 and 32 team previews. up on FanDuel right now, the Jaguars 7.5-point favorites in that week 1 game over the Cleveland Browns. I agree from a football standpoint, Watson should be the starter. And I was never a fan of Shador Sanders. I made the most money I've ever made betting on the NFL draft when I bet Shador Sanders to not be a first-round pick. And I did not like what I saw last year. There were a couple of like positive signs. Now, I'm not saying the kid can't be an NFL quarterback. I just don't think he's an NFL starting quarterback, But after the press conference and then just reading all the Browns reporters like tweeting things out, I just felt that Watson just clearly did not want to be there. And I thought the organization was just going to either do something like spiteful and say, we're not cutting you because of the cap stuff. So maybe you're just going to be our third string quarterback and you're not going to dress. And it's going to be Shador number 1 and Dylan Gabriel number 2. But now, I mean, like I said, you asked me a month ago and I would have agreed with everything that you said. Watson has to be the starter. You have to play him because you're paying him. And that's it. And then next year, you're going to draft a quarterback because you're going to be a bad team this year. You trade away Myles Garrett, right? Your team's in transition. We'll see what happens. I saw odds on an offshore book. Deshaun Watson is an even money favorite to be the first quarterback bench this year. That means not in a game. That means in a start. So of all the quarterbacks this year, Michael, do you think that is the best bet for Deshaun Watson to be the first quarterback to be benched?
Oh, man, I wish I knew this was coming because then I would have looked into the market and all the other options out there. I assume it voids upon injury, right? Like if someone gets injured and they're not the starter the following week.
Correct. Yes.
Because then there would have to be value elsewhere in simply taking
I'll give
the
you,
field.
I'll give
Who
you
are
the
the other
top
top candidates?
Yeah, so Watson's the even money favorite. Tua is the second favorite at plus 250. And I'll be honest, I don't even know if Tua starts week 1. Like Michael Penix is back now, so maybe Penix starts week 1.
Tua starting week 1.
Okay, so then, Tua is probably a good bet also, right? He's plus 250. Geno Smith 3-1. I don't see that.
No way.
Geno's going to play for the Jets. Kirk Cousins plus 350.
No way.
Okay, you think it's going to be a while before Mendoza plays?
Yeah, because Brady is like incredibly outspoken about your draft pick doesn't earn you the spot. A quarterback should sit their first year. It's actually good for them. So unless like if the Raiders are at all even mediocre, Cousins is going to like Cousins needs to be dreadfully bad or injured for them to go to Mendoza before week 10 or if the schedule opens up a little bit later in the season. I haven't looked at the Raiders schedule specifically, but actually that actually starts to make me think Watson's a good choice because I actually have faith that Tua starts, Geno starts, and Kirk Cousins remains starter. So then that would make sense that Watson probably has some value because there's going to be so much noise around every Cleveland Browns game if he remains the starter to the point where it gets to the point where like it might just be easier on the new head coach to move on from the drama and bench him and stop dealing with the questions and during the week and all the other players being asked and every week in the interviews, pregame, postgame, midweek. Like you're going to be asked this question 1,000 times. And at a certain point, it's just worth probably moving on from to stop the narrative stuff around it. Quiet the building.
And it's easier, I should say, for a new head coach and Todd Monken to bench Watson after you started him because you can justify the decision, right? Oh, subpar performance here in a couple of weeks. We're going to see what Shador can do for us. We're 0-3. Let's try and spark something with Shador. As opposed to now where the decision probably wasn't his, right? Like this came from the top down.
Monken wanted Shador when he was with the Ravens. Like there's those quotes about him saying, I tried to get you already once. Now I finally got you, that the Ravens were interested in Sanders. But Sanders actually like didn't want to go to the Ravens because he knew he would be like, there was no chance that he was starting over Lamar without an injury. And so those players and coach Monken and Sanders have been linked for a year and a half now. So it's like if Monken now finally gets a chance with the guy that he kind of wanted, that also it's a very fitting head coach to then slide Sanders in.
Well, let's see what happens. Week 1, 7.5-point dogs at Jacksonville. I would imagine the Jags are going to be a popular survivor pick in week number 1. Like, I think the Chargers, who are 10.5-point favorites up on FanDuel over the Cardinals, might be the most selected team. I'm going to caution people against taking the Chargers because I feel like the Cardinals can pull the upset and knock everybody out of Circa Survivor. And then the 7.5-point line is the next highest line of the week, and that is with the Jags over the Browns. The other 7-point spread is the Lions at home over the New Orleans Saints. So I imagine the Jaguars might be the top, the second most behind the Chargers picked team in Survivor. Maybe Shador Sanders.
I'll be on the Chargers.
You will be on the Chargers? I'm fading that. I'm just saying, if there's 1 week the Cardinals are going to win a game, it's going to be that week. It's going to be that week. But
got to get the Chargers while they're actually healthy before they.
Yeah, that's true.
They're an injury bug team.
Baseball fans, think you know who's hitting a homer today? Well, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with Daily Dingers. Joining the action's easy. Just make your free pick on who's hitting a home run in their game. And if you're right, you'll get a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. You've got nothing to lose and a lot to gain. And don't forget, you can make a free pick every day during MLB season. It's just another way FanDuel is home for home runs. So, are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com/believe. That's FanDuel.com/believe to play Daily Dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. 21 plus in select states. For Kansas in affiliation with Kansas Star Casino. 18 plus DC, Kentucky, Wyoming. No purchase necessary. Opt-in required. Bonus issued as a non-withdrawable profit boost tokens. Restrictions apply, including any token expiration and max wager amount. See terms at sportsbook.fanduel.com. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-MY-RESET. Call 1-888-789-7777. Visit ccpg.org/chat in Connecticut. Visit mdgamblinghelp.org in Maryland. Visit gamblinghelplinema.org. Call 800-327-5050 in Massachusetts. Call 1-877-8-HOPE-NY. Text HOPE-NY New York. Call 1-877-770-7867 in Louisiana.
Well, we mentioned the Las Vegas Raiders and that situation with Fernando Mendoza. Yesterday, the Raiders got a scare, or on Sunday, they got a scare when Ashton Genty went down with an injury in practice and couldn't put any weight on his leg. And I talked about this on my VSiN show. I talked about this on the pod yesterday. I was just reading the tea leaves thinking this is going to be a serious injury because your teammates don't get in a prayer circle when you just roll your ankle, right? Like they must have thought it was that bad to then take a knee and say a prayer for you as a team as you're being helped off the field without putting any weight on your leg. Now, yesterday we get news that it's likely just a sprain. Of course, we'll get more information, right? Like we're recording this pod, earlier than we normally do during the season. So we'll get more information, like probably after this recording, that maybe it's, the high, like what I'm assuming, again, you never want to assume that it's the high ankle sprain, which is like the worst version where you're going to be out a few weeks, but it doesn't appear to be a severe injury that will cause him to miss significant time. He's probably not going to play week 1, maybe not week 2, maybe he's out a month, maybe he's not out that much at all, but the Raiders definitely dodged a bullet with the Ashton Genty news.
Yeah, I mean, maybe you do get in a hope and prayer circle when he's hyped up to be the Lord and Savior of the team. Maybe the threshold gets a little lower. I will say, for any fantasy people or for any college fans out there, like the guy that they drafted, Mike Washington Jr., his combine was electric. He was the first in the 40-yard dash time for this year, second in vertical jump, second in broad jump. The Arkansas running back, Mike Washington Jr. So they do have another like insanely athletic, talented back coming in that's going to be young and probably take over a ton of the usage. So that would be the name that should get the most attention in the wake of Genty going down.
Yeah, I mean, I was at the game when he had the 53-yard touchdown run against the Cardinals in week 1 of the preseason. I talked to a bunch of fantasy experts this weekend who, were very high on Mike Washington Jr. as not just a handcuff to Genti, but after the injury, somebody that, was elevated on their draft boards. And my initial thought, and I talked about this on yesterday's pod, as soon as the injury goes down, I looked at every book to try to get the under 975.5. I was able to get it on one book. Most of the regular books took it off the board immediately because they're quick on the news, just like we're quick on the news. But I was able to get under 975.5 on Ashton Genti. And look, if he misses week 1, good bet. If he misses week 2, better bet. If he misses week 3, great bet. We always talk about why unders are more profitable in betting player props, and this injury is just another reason why. And most house rules, like at FanDuel, it says the player must play 1 regular season snap. So it's not week 1. It's as long as they play at some point this season, those props count. And that's important if you're doing like a quarterback prop on somebody that's not a starter right now, right? If you want to bet an under on Mendoza, well, if you think that Mendoza is not going to play until later in the season, play the under on his prop right now. Right now up on FanDuel, Fernando Mendoza up on FanDuel right now, 2,500 passing yards. Okay. If you think he's not going to play until week, 13, 14, 15, play the under, because FanDuel house rule says as long as the player plays 1 regular season snap.
I love that. He might not start a single game, but he'll play. Like if they're down 28 in a fourth quarter or up 28 in a fourth quarter, he'll play. Yeah. So he'll get us a few snaps this season, even if he doesn't start. And then the longer he doesn't start, the better. I think I'm going to bet that after we're done recording. Yeah, it's a very important designation with the house rules on the books. So make sure you check your sports book and make sure you know the rules. Like it doesn't have to be week 1 that they have to play. It just, for FanDuel, as long as the player plays 1 regular season snap, your bet is good. If they don't play at all this season, like if they get injured here in preseason, they're out for the year, your bet's going to be void. So no harm, no foul. Let's get into our 32 and 32 NFL team preview of today's team, Michael, and that is the Carolina Panthers. A win total of 7.5 minus 136 to the under for the Carolina Panthers. Currently the 3rd favorite in the NFC South behind the Bucks and the Saints. Panthers plus 310. And I always say this about teams in sports. Sometimes when it seems like everybody's on a team, right? Everyone loves this team this year. Everyone's betting this team this year. Sometimes those teams can be a year away. Sometimes those teams can be a year away from being a year away. Like there's times where like maybe the market's just a little bit too early on a team. Is that the case with the Carolina Panthers? Because it felt like every single sharp and everybody was on the Panthers last year and it didn't happen for them. Is this the year it happens for the Carolina Panthers? What do you think? Interesting twist there. I thought you were going to say, is this still 1 year too early for them? Well, that's what I'm saying. Like when I said, like sometimes they're a year away from being a year away. Like that's what this could be. Like last year was everyone was on them. This year, they're a year away. Next year's their year. I would agree. I would say next year at current prices in market, I would much prefer an under on the Carolina Panthers. Yeah. And the reason to say that, they could be a year away still is they were the 5th highest spending team in free agency this year. So like a ton of really big new pieces that come into this team that were not there last year that might take some time to integrate. And I do think the rest of their division is still like holding on where, the Bucks could go a very different way next year if they don't have Baker or Bowles. You could say the same thing about the Falcons if Tua and Penix don't work out. You could say the same thing if Tyler Shuck doesn't work out and they move on from that experiment. Like it could become next year where they're like an odds-on favorite because the continuity, where like it feels like everyone in their division is still trying to make a run at it this year. And it could be a 4-tiered team of mediocrity. And so at current numbers in market, I would prefer the under 7.5 at the, what'd you say, minus 136? Minus 136. Yep. Yeah, the under 6.5s that are out there at like plus 125 are probably good too. So yeah, those would be the directions that I would play if I'm playing any Panthers future, thinking like they did have some key additions, but some key departures as well. Already hearing some injury stuff from Chuba Hubbard, who's like a leader in their locker room, and now they're turning over the backfield to maybe Jonathan Brooks, who is coming off of back-to-back ACL tears.
Hmm.
I've never been a big fan in Bryce Young. Like I'm not a big Bryce Young truther. I still think he has a lot of shortcomings that he needs to work around. Like the only few players that I truly believe on this team are like wide receivers and skill players, where those are some of the least impactful players if the trenches aren't set, if the quarterback's not healthy, if the run game's not solid. So I would be looking under at all current numbers.
This is a brutal schedule. Like, honestly, like we talk about alt unders all the time, but there's a world in which the Panthers are the last place team in this division and they don't win many games. Like, you play the NFC North this year, right? Which is a very difficult division, we know. You play the AFC North, which, okay, Ravens, you have to go to Pittsburgh to play the Steelers. Like, okay. Yeah, maybe you beat Cleveland and Cincinnati. We'll see about that. And then, like, you play Denver, you play Seattle. That's just outside your division. You play the Eagles. Where are the wins coming from on this schedule? Like, where are the wins coming from? Like, okay, in the division, we know everyone beats each other up. Let's give them 3 wins in the division, like best case scenario. Best case scenario, they go 3-3 in the division. All right, I'll give them a 4th win against Cleveland. I'll give them a 5th win against, Cincinnati. And then maybe the ball bounces their way and they pick up a win where they shouldn't. How is this? Where's 8 wins coming from? How is 7.5 not minus 236 instead of minus 136?
So Scott, there's actually a really interesting dynamic now that I pull up the timestamps and for line movements, and as it relates to their schedule, they have the 30th hardest schedule, only behind the Miami Dolphins and the St. Louis Cardinals. They have the hardest schedule in the NFL after those two teams, based on forecasted season win total numbers this year. So very hard schedule. And then you look at the actual line movements in the win total number. So some of these numbers have crept up from 6.5 to 7.5, but that's primarily at like pretty soft recreational books. And the VIG changes within those are like equivalent of being worth what a win total is actually worth, like close to 45-50 cents. So the numbers increased, but the line truly hasn't moved. If you find like what the true odds line is without the VIG, the prices changed respective of what that win is worth. So it really hasn't moved much, even though the line has gotten over. The places that take sharp bets and take bigger bets have actually opened at 6.5 with some juice towards the under, like a plus 130, and now are down to plus 122 at under 6.5. So people are betting the under 6.5 at the places that are willing to take bigger bets and sharper action. So I actually think that's very telling of where soft books versus sharp books are moving. And there's a pretty clear market signal for under on Panthers right now. So I actually think that's one I'm going to action as we wrap up here as well.
Yep. Best bet, Panthers under 7.5 wins. That'll wrap up our 32-32 season team preview of the Carolina Panthers. We'll continue the NFC South as we move on through the remainder of this week with David Behrman tomorrow, AJ Hoffman joining us on Thursday. Also Thursday, we talked about this yesterday, but we're going to keep announcing it every day this week. The Better Day Football Show, which we air live stream every Thursday, 2 p.m. Eastern Time. Steve Fezzik and I will be live out at Circa Sports for the Ultimate Contest sign-up weekend. We will be broadcasting from Radio Row on Thursday. Joshua Nunn, Duck, will join us on the stream as well, but Fez and I will be in the building at the Circa Sportsbook. So if you're there, come by, say hello, but we will be doing a live broadcast, obviously, a lot of contest talk, and yes, week 0, college football best bets as well. Fiddle, what do you have coming up on your pod, and anything that you're getting ready for here with the start of the NFL season fast approaching?
So I think on Wednesday, I'm going to dive back into the NBA and do some like way too early NBA futures, some fun NBA conversations and topics based on the offseason. And then just continuing to grind WNBA. The WNBA does go on a break for FIBA, so I'm going to be paying attention to some of the international women's basketball stuff that's going on. But I mean, WNBA and MLB ROI for my summer has like been game changing for me. So very exciting personal time for me right now in the betting space of just like truly crushing, and very proud of myself for the summer. This is like one of those directionally changing summers that I'll point back to and be like, that was a career altering summer because of how well I ran, and staking up and scaling, and all those factors really coming together for me at the right time.
We absolutely love it, and we love having you on board with us here on Better Day as well. For Michael Fiddle, I'm Scott Seidenberg. Here's hoping you make today and every day a better day.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.